Hello, listeners! In today's episode, I welcome Greg Heilers, the co-founder of Jolly SEO, a company that specializes in link building and content outreach for businesses aiming to improve their online visibility. Greg brings a unique background to his role, having started his career far from the digital world, working in agriculture and traveling the globe before settling into writing and eventually founding a successful SEO agency. His journey offers a fresh perspective on how diverse experiences can shape one's approach to business and marketing. Throughout the episode, Greg shares practical strategies for navigating the competitive world of SEO. He discusses the significance of authenticity in outreach and why building a real relationship with publication is crucial for long-term success. Greg also sheds light on the challenges and opportunities presented by the ever-changing nature of search engines and digital marketing, offering tips on how to effectively use platforms like Reporter Out and Connectively to gain media coverage and build authority. Additionally, Greg touches on the role of AI in content creation, explaining how it can be used as a powerful tool when used correctly, but also highlighting the importance of human oversight in maintaining quality and relevance. For those looking to enhance their brand online presence, Greg offers clear and actionable advice on everything from crafting compelling pitches to evaluating the quality of potential link building opportunities. This episode is a must-listen for anyone interested in mastering the art of SEO and content marketing. Welcome to the Ecom Pulse, your heartbeat to the world of e-commerce. I'm your host, Eitan Koter. Join us as we meet with industry leaders, marketing experts, and the innovative minds behind the tech that is shaping the e-commerce future. So plug in, gear up, and get ready for a pulse-pounding journey into the heart of e-commerce. Hey Greg, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, excellent, Eitan. Thanks so much for having me.
Sure. Thank you as well for your time. I'm always excited to speak to a person who has writing skills and storytelling capabilities. For me, it's an art. I'd love to learn more how you got into writing and what brings you to why you are passionate about it. I need to know everything, so please tell me more.
Sure. Thank you. Actually, we dive straight into the personal to get to that.
Okay.
I was not working digitally in my 20s. I worked in agriculture, traveled around a lot, and met my future wife in Guatemala. And she said, we want to try this relationship. Come live with me. She's from China. And I went to China, and all I knew what to do in Beijing, there's nowhere to farm for me. So I used English as a skill, right? Pretty basic. Started editing, proofreading, and realized the writers seem to make more money, have more freedom, sounds more fun anyway. And, step by step, I will say, I like to think I'm a good writer, but in the early days, I fooled myself, thinking my clients just love my writing. I didn't know what SEO was. I didn't know what content mills were. Turns out I wasn't the one selling the cars. They were just using me to attract people to the website, right?
Yeah. No, interesting. So what was the Guatemala story? Just you went there for some trip or we worked there?
Yeah. A lot of Israelis too after the military, right? Doing a lot of world traveling. I'm thinking that was a while ago now, a decade, but yeah, I was doing like a reforestation project, some community building projects, but mostly, I was just enjoying my late 20s, just not being super productive, but ended up, it's all part of the journey.
Yeah. So today, when you have that perspective, obviously co-founded Jolly SEO agency, you're spending a lot of time working with brands and businesses around link building, SEO. What's your view on writing? And please share with us some of your storytelling tips. What do you see that is working these days?
Yeah, authenticity, right? I'm not going to shy away from telling you what I did in my 20s because it's who I am. And the style, we have a stigma. What in the space I work in, I like to joke, no offense to lawyers, you're not a lawyer podcast, so I can get away with this, but SEOs, we got a stigma to us, kind of like lawyers, right? But if you represent yourself authentically, and writing, and as you say, storytelling, it's a great medium for that. We just lean on our clients' expertise. So in my case, I'm not going to sit here and fabricate. I have knowledge that an MBA student would have. I don't. I was telling you before we started recording, it's all like school of hard knocks, unfortunately, for me, the hard way, a lot of pain, including today, the learning lessons. So just communicating that stuff. The good news is life gives you an endless supply of stories if you're willing to share, if you're willing to put yourself out there.
And maybe pay notice and pay some attention to what's happening in your life. There's a lot of things that you can write about. So you think anyone can write? Or this is something more people are more passionate about writing? Other people are more passionate maybe about podcasting or videos? Or
I think so. I think anyone can apply themselves, but as much as I'm grateful to be on your podcast today, and as much as I try, I'm not someone who feels confident in having a YouTube channel. It just doesn't currently fit with me. However, anytime I get the chance to write a guest article on a publication, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, it's important. You need to be passionate about something, right? I mean, that's a must. So we started in Guatemala. You shared with us about China.
Yes.
What's next? Take us through your journey.
Guatemala, China. We all physically went to Mexico, but I'm here in the United States. Of course, like a lot of young people, I'm outside San Francisco, so I thought, the tech scene. I flirted a bit with trying to work at the VC startups as a freelancer, not internally, occasionally put in a job app. But at least for me, having a young family, I thought having a business was more stable in the end than having a job, more secure. All the business owners here listening would know it's got a whole set of challenges and anxiety and stresses, right? But that's interestingly, we're talking about location. It has let me be location independent. We're going back to China in a couple of weeks. Probably by the time this airs, that's where I'll be. So it's trade-offs.
Yeah. So how did you start Jolly? I mean, what's triggered you to launch it?
We were a content agency. We did the articles, webpage copy as well. At the beginning, like they say, throwing spaghetti and seeing what sticks. But we were missing this critical. We didn't know it at the time. We thought our main issue was we're new, and of course, that's a real factor. People have trust issues when you're new, but we didn't have product market fit. It turns out just writing a good piece of content isn't enough. You have to have the other components we didn't know. We didn't know SEO, so we didn't know, are we writing something that our client actually needs to generate demand for their products? And then the other side of it is, as good of a piece you write, even if it's got the demand waiting for it, if you don't promote it, there's a good chance no one's going to see it. So we didn't know you have to promote. So what we were doing was taking an order, fulfilling the order, but the person ordering wasn't even sure that they were going to use that thing. And we were not capable. I mean, it was like a real don't know what you don't know kind of thing. We had no idea why someone would say, the writing looks good, and then never order from us again, because they didn't get any sales from it. They didn't know as well. So it was a real learning curve across the board. And that was a huge one for us, was like, well, you have to create something that is actually useful to people to have a real business.
How this clarity, eventually came? I mean, you just got some feedback from customer. You learned the material, the space more.
Unfortunately for that model, it didn't come and then we fixed it. It came a couple years later when we actually had a fit with something else for a couple years, and I was like, the reason we're succeeding is because we're actually doing something of value. And the reason we failed before is because it was not valuable enough, let's say. It had some value. Obviously, some people paid. But on the side, I was freelancing. I like to say about that first business, everybody got paid except for us, my co-owner and I. We just didn't understand so much, including margins and things like that. But I was freelancing, always hustling, and someone gifted me with the outreach tactic I've been focused on for the last 5 years. They were like, if you can write, you can do this. And I want someone to do it for me because I don't want to do the writing, is what they were looking for. And they took a roll of the dice, and one client turned into two. And then I turned to my buddy, the co-owner of the content agency. He was like, we just need to stop that and do this thing that is really paying my family's bills.
Nice. So let's talk about that. What was this North Star or product or service that you are currently focusing on?
Yeah. It's a cool outreach tactic. Anybody can do themselves if you like to write, or you can delegate to a writer if you already have a great writer. People often have heard of like Help a Reporter Out. It's an old platform.
Yeah.
It's like PR, but you represent yourself. So instead of I have a client, they could comment. It's you see an opportunity and you directly contribute your expertise. And what's really neat about it is you don't need to go contacting people cold. There's these aggregators. The old one was called Help a Reporter Out, but there's a lot of platforms today.
Yes.
We can get into them if we want, but they're all basically the same. There's hundreds of opportunities every day. The real job is finding an opportunity that actually works for you, and then comes the writing part.
Yeah. So helping a reporter out was a great solution, but I think it's very difficult to compete today, right? And there are a lot of new ones that have actually been launched lately. So your approach is working with this platform, or you also reach out directly to the publications, and maybe it's a mix of outreach strategies?
That's right. Yeah. Today we do a mix. And some of these have shorter learning curves than others. So I actually still advise that Help a Reporter Out style, but there's a few platforms I would suggest that are like better for beginners.
Okay.
And if we want, we can get into advice for those.
Let's do that.
Yeah. We can do that. It also depends what your goal is, PR or SEO. So let's say you are at a brand that you really want to position yourself as an authority. You want to get some brand awareness. Forget the SEO component for a second. Depends on your budget. Let's say you have a little budget. I would go with the new Help a Reporter. It's called Connectively. You can try it for free. If you find that it's interesting to you, you can pay. But there's also the founder of Help a Reporter. He's not part of that original brand. He sold a decade plus ago.
Okay.
Has something called Source of Sources. It's just like the old format. It's an email newsletter. And both of these work similar. And you can do this for free. And there's a few criteria I would use to help you pretty quickly identify what you want. And we can even get into tactically how to use those. But those are two I would look into: Connectively and currently called Source of Sources. These are the two that are free, more PR focused.
Okay, so what's happening Connectively? Let's discuss about this platform, for example.
Yeah, Connectively has a great UI to it. I would say, so the benefits to you, it's not going to flood your email inbox with opportunities. You can sort a few hundred a day by when they were published. You can filter them by the industry or niche you're interested in. And again, if you don't care about the SEO stuff, because that's the downside for people who worry about search engine optimization, is it doesn't have those data points that we like to follow. But you'll see some big name publications for sure. And you can find, all the usual suspects in there. Now the downside is, as you mentioned, very competitive these days. You're talking about a platform. The Help a Reporter had 800,000 subscribers. I don't quite know how many are in Connectively today. There's also a problem in all the platforms right now is the AI spam, right? So my advice, if you're going to try Connectively, is to really flesh out your profile, because the journalists are looking at the profile on there, and make sure you stand out as a real human. That's the number one thing. And by the way, on that route, further is, if you don't have it yet, flesh out your LinkedIn profile. Interestingly enough, today, LinkedIn is like the hardest place to get a fake persona to actually survive. LinkedIn is pretty good about killing fake profiles.
Mm-hmm. Nice. So how do you stand out in these type of platforms? I mean, it's the topic itself, is the copy? What are some tips there?
You said topic itself. So on that note, it's relevancy to the topic. So your subject line needs to cite your relevancy as an authority. It's a mix of authority and relevancy. So we're talking about e-commerce. Let's say that the person is from HubSpot writing an article about like cart abandonment rates or something, right? You want to say like, I've e-com store owner with a like 3% improvement in cart abandonment as your subject line, right? Like you need to somehow in like 8 words cram in your relevancy to that article and tout your authority. And that to me is one of the most critical things. It's just like doing email outreach, right? Or it's those first words that are going to determine if you even get an open or not. And so in this space, the journalist or marketer who's receiving your pitch, they just want some indication. Okay, this email is going to be so easy for me to highlight, copy, and paste into my article that I'm trying to craft right now. I'm not going to need a lot of back and forth, maybe zero back and forth. And it's going to be worth reading. It's not going to be some garbage that was generated.
Sure. It's quickly can be identified, obviously. And so again, we are discussing about the importance of the hook, right? Because of such a low attention span of everyone these days, right? And the overflow of content. So the hook, I mean, it should be very, very short, very specific, right? And probably hit a nerve or a pain point that is quite dramatic. So people are becoming more connected and they're looking, maybe get their interest to read more, right?
Yeah. It's like, I don't know much about your line of work because, again, I'm not a video expert, but if a consumer is looking for, I saw on your website, for example, a shoe example. If they're looking for shoes and the thumbnail is of like a toothbrush, like that video is not getting played, right?
Sure.
So that's how it is.
Yeah. So how the engagement with your customers is working? Tell us like how they are looking internally in terms of how the marketing teams are structured and what type of other engagement they have on the marketing side, and where do you fit in?
Yeah. So honestly, sometimes we're a little butting heads if they have a PR team in place, and very rightly so. So the PR team, this is as an outsider, an external person's job, is to protect the brand, to make sure that the brand is moving forward positively. It's not I don't like the adage of like all PR is good PR, right? Like it's just not the case. Some bad things can be done to the brand. And again, we SEOs have a stigma. So they're rightly guarding the founder or the CEO or the brand as a whole, the reputation. So a lot of times it's working together to understand, and not just that, there's a little fear. This is my interpretation of toe stepping. Like we're going to get in their space and we're going to take some of their importance. So it's really clearly defining, this is our outreach lane. We use these platforms. You have your relationships, but we don't. We do the outreach as you. So it's not our relationships. We're creating relationships for you. We're like an extension of your team. And with the onboarding process, we're trying to assimilate your culture and that specific person, their values, so that we don't cross any of those lines and hurt the brand. And we also have some explicit no-go. There's some people, including us over the years, we've made mistakes where people are like, get a win at all costs. mentality and say some things that are not appropriate. So we don't talk politics, we don't talk family. We just make sure that even if it's more cumbersome for us, the brand is respected and protected at all times. So that's the PR angle. Now the SEOs have a different take on what we're doing altogether. And for the SEO minded audience, there's a limitation to this outreach. And that is, so we're talking about backlinks. Now, these are some of the highest quality backlinks you can earn. And I say earn because we don't pay. We don't work with grifters. That said, the limitation is you get branded anchor text. So it's good for the brand, but it goes to your homepage. It doesn't go to a product page. You're not getting a feature in an article promoting your newest launch.
Sure.
These are not the things.
Right? Yeah.
So that's a big limitation. Sometimes the SEO team is like, this is not valuable enough. For me, I'm just going to go buy a backlink that can go to my product page. Or the PR team will say, I'm just going to go pay for a product feature over here. And that's very real and understandable.
So these are like conversion probably activities, right? That are like immediate, right? Like redirecting to a product page.
Yes.
And you talk about something which is more like a brand building, awareness, thought leadership, this type of content. So how do you know and how the process of feedback back to the brands? What are the interesting topics that they need to write, or what are the topics that are relevant for this type of outreach? How this process works? I mean, how you do the research of what's working and what's not.
Yeah, well, I think what you said is totally true, and that's a big pain point of ours. Tracing the value, right? The ROI, because there are more, especially we didn't talk about, but PPC, right? There's a real conversion focus short term. And we understand we're a business. We do lead generation and we do demand brand work. In my opinion, and it's very self-serving, but you got to do both. But how do we know what to talk about? Well, what's really cool about this style of outreach, no matter your expertise, you can talk about those topics still. You can talk about product launches. You can talk about, I don't think you'd want to talk about paid link building, but you can talk about PPC. It's less taboo. There's hundreds of opportunities a day just in this little avenue where these basically 5 platforms that we use. There's really enough without going into your personal life or finance or anything like that. There's really enough, no matter what your expertise is, to find a way to connect with these topics. Enough for one human. I mean, how many are you going to write a day? Sure.
And what are your thoughts on this paid link building? I mean, there is a place for them, or it just doesn't worth it, and obviously the idea is, I mean, you can reach out to so many, third-party publications, but there are so much difference between the big ones, the medium size, and the smaller ones. So what's the best way in your mind is to think, and because I know we also been approached like every week. We're an agency, you want to promote us, and tell us the budget, and we'll do an amazing work for you. What do you mean?
Yeah.
What budget? So what are your thoughts on this paid versus earned type of link building?
I think it's like a lot of when you're evaluating a vendor, you need to understand where your business is at, what your marketing goals are, your budget is. We are not a good fit. Now, if you're doing it yourself, this doesn't quite apply, right? It's cheaper to do it yourself depending on what your hourly rate is, or you got a writer on the team, than use a vendor. But as a vendor, we're not a good fit if you're just starting your SEO journey. You need to get your website together first. In terms of paid links, it's a little apples and oranges. I used to just say it's all bad. I think that's too reductionist, too simplistic. It's too dismissive. What's true, though, is when you're getting pitched with these like Dear Sir, Dear Madam lists, right? There's a reason we call what we do Google safe. There's a reason that we feel with every algorithm update, our positioning is strengthened. Now, are we slower? Yeah. Are we more expensive? Yeah. Do I wish we could just resell and make quick money? That'd be awesome. But those types of websites, if you use SEO tools, you'll see almost all the tools agree. Those websites are decreasing in traffic over time. It's not difficult for anyone with some expertise to pick up on the tells, right? They're what we call in the industry link farms. Mm-hmm. So their product is backlinks. They sell backlinks. So I think there's some short-term juice to squeeze. And I think if you're super savvy at that, which I'm not, you can even find some sites that are safer for long-term plays. But and the flip is true. There are exceptions to sites where we get clients' placements that those sites go down too over time, right? But in general, we're working with legitimate products or services. Those are the companies that post opportunities in the platforms Profnet, Connectively, Help a B2B Writer. In general, there's always the exceptions. So that's for me the distinction is like,
sure.
If you're super savvy at that, you have a lot of experience, I'm sure there are good value to be had in buying backlinks.
Yeah. So what is the importance of link building? I mean, Google is just updating, what's working, what's not, like every few weeks, and things are changing so fast. They move from a search platform to an answer platform. What is the trend, or what are the future of link building, or why is it important? I mean, as part of a strategy, for any marketeer out there.
Yeah, I mean, last year the mood at the search conferences was pretty dark. Everybody almost didn't want to talk about search; they just talked about AI instead. It was like, are we at a search conference? Because nobody's really wanting to talk about search right now. I don't propose to know what will happen, but one thing I noticed, for example, we're recording in July. In February of 2024, AI Overviews was released, and so that created a lot of stir, for us as an agency and others, churn events, clients saying like, I'm not sure about the future ROI here. Mm-hmm. It's 5 months later now. That's more than quieted down to the pre-announcement normal that by like April, most people had got those jitters out of their system. Did all those individual clients come back? No, not necessarily. Some did, but some still aren't sure. And so I hear you. The thing that I look at, and obviously I want to like lie to myself a little bit and say like the space is okay, is even though in my opinion, I agree with the people who say like Google's stealing content for AI overviews. You can see whole sectors of the internet that are getting destroyed in favor of people who clearly have back-end deals with Google, and some that are not even behind closed doors, some that are publicized, like Reddit, that's, data sharing pre-IPO, all this stuff. In the actual search results itself, AI Overview still has to cite its source. There's still the same old blue links. There's changes like as a user, they used to have what's called continuous scroll. When you're scrolling down, it just kept going. That started 2 years ago, but they're killing that now and going back to pages. So all these changes are like, they're scary, but they also provide opportunity. The real estate is still valuable. I think, we'd have to get into the stats on like younger people using TikTok and things like this. And all these things are true. So again, I don't know that link building is specifically like an industry that's growing, but I also don't see it as diminishing in importance anytime soon. Yeah, especially depending on the quality you do.
I fully agree. And if you do the reach out, it's like you do the reach out to all the right places. It's kind of a combination of link building is kind of a PR, like major PR activities, because you reach out on behalf of a brand, you talk to all the major publications, you get awareness from leading editors, right, and writers, and it's purely marketing, right? It's just exposing your brand, build a brand. It's all great things. On the other side, you have like SEO, right? You always fight for those keywords, and you search for intent, and you hope you're going to rank in some realistic location, and for people to click on this link and to convert on your website. I mean, like, this funnel is so difficult, right? And it's a game of probably the big players, right? It's very difficult to compete, like for smaller or medium-sized brands to compete, with larger brands on SEO. It's tough, right? And a long term. And here you can reach out, you can work with those platforms, you can reach out directly to the publications, and I see great value because it's like pure marketing, and it's which is like regardless of algorithms, right? So
yeah, there's an anecdote I mentioned to you before we started recording. I'll just say it again at risk of boring you, but for the audience, I have a returning client who completely surprised me. I mean, you always get educated by your clients, and this one spent a few $100,000 with us over a couple of years, and came back and was like, yeah, the links were good, but the real value was you gave me relationships with publications like Forbes, where
exactly.
And I didn't even understand that. I knew like we're shooting ourselves in the foot long term because we don't build relationships for ourselves. We build them in our client's name. But I also knew that most of our clients didn't take advantage. They don't actually pursue those. And I think the same is true for most people who do outreach. They're looking for the quick win instead of build a relationship. It crosses over into business, sales, and marketing, right? All these things. But the long-term value, yeah, I think SEO is actually a safe play, but even forget all that. I agree. Like, the real value is the human connection isn't going away.
Exactly. And that's a great story for anyone who asks you about the ROI of this activity, right? How can you calculate that? It's difficult, right?
Absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah. So, wow, really, really interesting. So, what are your thoughts in general about the use of AI and AI overview and churn around that? So,
yeah, the use of AI as a tool, and we're talking about mostly like LLMs, right? I've evolved over the past year and a half or two. A year and a half or two, I was too ignorant and too fearful, but I also don't think was completely wrong in this, because we made internal policies like many places and said anybody caught using it will be terminated, because I don't think anybody else knew how to use it properly, and the tools were too new. And it just, you can see it in our space. There's a lot of AI spam, and it's not, anybody who's on LinkedIn can see it too, right? Like there's cool applications that allows people who clearly, we're speaking in English, right? You're in Israel, your English is great, but there's a whole like 1 billion plus people in South Asia that would like to connect with the West, but their English writing is not good enough. But they're not really achieving their goal. They're generating these AI comments on LinkedIn to get engagement, and like, it's not, nobody wants those comments. They're not doing it. They're just adding clutter. And so I'm very sympathetic, but my thinking is, it took us 10 months from August of last year till about June of this year to get a process internally where we're creating outreach using these LLMs and hybridizing it with human oversight, which is always the best practice when you use tools to have human oversight.
You can use the LLM to give you like some ideas, right? But you need to wrap them up, obviously.
Yeah.
Right?
What was really cool is the founder of OpenAI and CEO, like Sam Altman, he had this interview recently, a few months ago. And he said, if anybody had asked me 5-10 years ago what the order of jobs being replaced by AI would be, he never would have guessed it would be the creatives. And like that surprised him completely.
Yeah.
And I have to say, as a writer, I have a pretty big ego too as a person. I didn't think it could be good enough, but it turns out we aren't that creative. It turns out it can create ideas just as well as I can. Sometimes for example, I say, can you generate 10 social media post ideas? I throw out 7, but 3 of them, I'm like, man, I'm sure glad I took 15 seconds to ask ChatGPT instead of scratch my brain for the next 8 days or not post kind of thing.
Yeah. Nice. So Greg, what are some of the tips you can provide to brands who want to jump into link building?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, here's the thing. If you love writing, then you can follow this advice yourself. Or if you don't, most of your listeners already have a writer, whether freelance or in-house. And so you can give these tips to them. And if they're a good content writer, and by that I mean like they write articles for you, they can do this style of outreach because it's fact-based, research-based. It needs to be honest and true. So the tips are, check out the free platforms. Connectively starts free. Help a B2B writer, it's called. There's mostly marketers on there, but some good sites like HubSpot kind of stuff roll through there. If you have budget, consider the next step. Featured is for SEO value. It's paid. Be very careful. There's some trash sites on there, but there's some great opportunities too. And then the next step is something called ProfNet. It's the highest quality sites, much less competition because the subscription's high. Those are the main platforms. And here's what I would do. We have been doing this for a long time. So we have Airtable. We have all the opportunities come in and filter them and sort them. But look at the deadline. That's the first step. Just assess if you have time to devote to this before the deadline. Because if you don't, what are you doing? Then look at the requirements. They'll sometimes explicitly state, I'm only looking for this type of credentials, this level of experience. If you don't fit those, you're wasting everyone's time, including your own.
Yeah.
And then it gets back to something we talked about in the beginning, which is connecting your expertise to the opportunity. And something I see so much is people think, I'm an e-commerce store selling mattresses. I can only pitch stuff related to mattresses. That's all I'm ever allowed to talk about. That may be true for you if that's how you feel. But if you're really trying to get your brand awareness out and position yourself as like an industry authority, not just a mattress expert, you can talk about all kinds of things related to business, marketing, sales, tech, lifestyle. You're a human being. So what you need to do is look at typically these opportunities are split. There's like a subject line. There's a title for the opportunity. And then there's like a paragraph describing the actual, what maybe some specific questions. So just quick cursory glance of the title. Do you feel, does that resonate with you? If not, just move on. If yes, that's just like on the reverse. Someone will be reading your pitch. Read through the questions. And my advice is, if you see 3 or more questions, don't answer them all. If it's like Business Insider, Wall Street Journal, sure, maybe take time to answer them all. But if it's a mid-tier publication and this writer has 8 questions, just answer 2. Just answer 2, but make them great answers. And so what most people do as a mistake is their reply is, here's my expertise. If you want information, let me know. And that's a great PR relationship, like if you have that already kind of thing, but these people don't know you. So they posted that opportunity for what they're hoping for is what we call copy pastable quotes. So what you need to do is 150 words or less, and it needs to be written in internet style. These are like 10-word sentences, 2 to 3 sentence paragraphs. Literally, they have to be able to highlight, copy, paste it into their GDoc draft that they're doing and move on, because they're going to get 150 pitches and they're just looking for, they've already got their sections usually built out. They need something to plug in. Or maybe your quote is so good they build a section out around it in their article. But that's like a few pointers I would give. Do you need it to be impeccable, no typos? No. But can it be littered with errors? Neither. So you don't want to try to write an article. If you find yourself having to scroll through your email, it's too much. Keep it short, 150 words or less. And that subject line we talked about in your email or on the platforms, find a way to say I'm relevant. It doesn't have to be, again, you're a mattress expert on a mattress topic only. But if it's about business, how many years in business you've been? If it's about cart abandonment, how much lift have you gotten? These kind of things.
Interesting. And in your scope of work and the type of services you provide, those snippets or pieces of content, you usually ask the owners to write, or you write it on their behalf?
Different models. For us, we try to be fully hands-off for the client. So you sign on with us, we have an onboarding form. We ask some of these questions that we know are going to be useful. We also really crawl through your blog post and LinkedIn post. So we don't typically reach out to clients for information. Now, this is a no-no, or like really poo-pooed on in the PR world. And there's platforms, for example, a really high-quality platform called Quoted, QWOTED. We're not allowed to use because we are ghostwriters, especially as SEOs. They don't like us. They really do want the PR agency to ask the CEO to write the quote, to give to the PR agency, to give to the... And I totally respect that. But we serve a pain point of either not enough time, not enough writing skill, or neither. And you're comfortable, and not everyone is, you're comfortable with letting us download the information initially, and then we just report the wins. You just pay for the wins. You don't pay us for the pitch. You don't pay us for looking. You just pay for the wins. But that doesn't suit everyone, right? So you can kind of model it however you need to, especially if you have an in-house writer, a little more back and forth.
Got it. And Greg, how people can evaluate the quality of the of the publication? I mean, is like domain authority or some of these things, or what are the practices around here?
Yeah, so I'm an SEO, so I'll come at it from an SEO perspective. But just at a high level, is it a real company with like a real service or product? First of all, that's like the minimum bar. You don't want these general topic spammy stuff. Of course, that doesn't apply to like Wall Street Journal, like the big publications. Yeah, they cover everything. I'm not talking about those. I'm just talking about like mom and pop blog kind of stuff. You don't want, right? That's the minimum.
Generalist, right? Ignore them. Yeah.
Ignore them. If you have an SEO tool, you're on the fence, look at their traffic history. We typically look at 2 years. You don't want a big decline, and you don't want a lot of volatility in their traffic history. These are bad signs. These are not going to be... When we talk about link building, I like to talk about it, it's like your social circle. Would you recommend to your sister or your cousin that they go meet the guy who you know has been like in and out of prison, maybe like alleged murderer, this kind of stuff? Like, would you connect those people? Because that's not who you are as a person. You don't want to be connected with them. So would you connect them with like the grandma who bakes cookies for the neighborhood kids, or like, the guy volunteer fixing up a neighbor's yard? Or like, these are the kind of connections you want. So we're looking at minimums like that, and then we can get into nitty-gritty SEO stuff. But you mentioned domain authority. We use domain rating by Ahrefs. But these are a proxy. These are like something that are mutually intelligible. We can discuss, but other SEOs nitpick on it and say like that can be gamed. That can be modified, and it doesn't mean it's a good site. And I agree. It's not meant to be the standalone metric. If you can't just look at that, but it's a helpful thing to know where we are on the spectrum on a 100-point scale. So there's a lot more we could look at, right? But some people are divergent here. Here's another one, relevancy. So we talked about it in terms of pitching. Some people believe the domain needs to be relevant to your business. Some people believe the article needs to be relevant to your business. Some people don't care about either. This is something I can't really say for you. I can just say as a vendor, depending on your niche, we can't even work with you if you want like hyper. We have people who are like, I have a fishing website and want only fishing articles on fishing websites to link.
Oh,
And we're like, that's probably one opportunity every 3 months, and that's not going to work for us. You can go do that, but not us. But we respect what our clients need, and it's just, you got to find that line for yourself, just like everything in life. Like, there's probably is more value the more relevant you get, but are you spending so much time trying to find that and not producing anything to get that? You got to make that call.
Yeah. And what will be like a healthy engagement practice in terms of number of opportunities that you get in a month, let's say?
Yeah. For us, doing this as a service, and we have business needs. We look for 5 links, 5 wins per month for a client. So we're pretty low volume compared to like the paid link builders who are doing pretty high volume stuff, but we're higher priced. And 5 links, to do that, you typically, let's say you're newer to this, you're going to need to send about 15 pitches per win to get that. And I'm talking about, again, higher quality wins. You can get lower quality wins probably easier. Really good people at this can do like 1 win for every 7 pitches. If you're just absolutely excellent, maybe even better. But I like to say 1 in 15. Our model, we don't charge for effort. We just charge for the wins. It's all built in. But
so you need to have a healthy like 75 pieces of original content just to hit that number. Yeah, makes sense.
Don't let me forget, if we're talking to people who are thinking about doing this themselves, to encourage you, 75 pitches. On top of that, 90% of them will never reply to you. And even the ones who reply and say, I'm going to include your quote, 90% of those will never share the link with you. The only ones that ever share the link with you are saying, can you please promote this on your Twitter or LinkedIn? Right?
Yes.
These are, whether they're freelancers or in-house, these people's jobs is to pump out content. They're not thinking about my network and future clients and all that. They got to write the next article. So we, as a vendor, I told you performance-based billing, we actually have a link hunting team that has to scour the internet to look for.
It's a scrape for that piece of content that is indeed over there, right?
It's crazy, but every week, without fail, I just had a nice exchange with a lady on LinkedIn. Of course, we're prospecting for clients. We saw her in an article. She doesn't need us as a vendor, but I was just encouraging her. You probably have a lot more wins out there. She's been doing it herself. It's the same story always. People are like, Greg, I tried this tactic because I sell a course. And some people are like, I'm not getting anything. And I'm like, look at the section of the course where I teach you how to look for the wins. And I say all the things I just said, because 75 pitches, there's an average turnaround time between a successful pitch, not your first pitch, right? But like, if you need to send 15 pitches for 1 win, could be the 15th pitch. So there's like a 30-day turnaround time on average, 32 is what our data says. And then on top of that, they're never going to tell you it's live. So you need to go look for it. And so most people just quit at this after like 4 pitches, no response. And I totally get that, right? But it does work. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to be here today.
Yeah, I know, and it probably it's important for you just to qualify the opportunities that whom you're working with, right? Just to have this longer term or more, that patience or that mentality that you need to invest to create a win, right?
Oh gosh, I shoot myself in the foot on sales calls trying to really communicate that, because most people who are looking at it from SEO are looking at paid links. Swipe your credit card, 3 days later you get your live win. But for us, I'm like, look at the graph. It's going to take us these months. Like, give us time. Is what it is.
Amazing. Super interesting, Greg. Really super interesting. How can people find you?
Oh, thanks, Eitan. I appreciate you letting me share a little bit. If people want to hear more, you can just find jollyseo.com. On LinkedIn, I'm Greg Heilers, Heilers. Happy to share what I can. Don't need to work with us as a client, right? It's an interesting space. And I'm just grateful to be here on the podcast and enjoying listening to the episode. So thank you.
Amazing. Anything else you want to add, Greg?
No, I learned from you as a host, so I appreciate it.
Great. Well, I think we covered a lot, so really appreciate the knowledge and the values here and the practical tips. So thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode. Your support means the world to us. If today's episode has been insightful for you, consider sharing it with someone who would also benefit. Even one share can make a big difference. Looking to elevate your e-commerce game? Discover Vimy, a multi-channel e-commerce platform that will transform your business with the power of shoppable video. Visit us at vimy.net to learn more. It's Vimy, VIMMI.net. Thank you for being part of our journey. Stay tuned for more invaluable insights in our next episode.